I'm Catherine Herridge on Capitol Hill. It's been 3 years since Ambassador Chris Stevens, Foreign Service Officer Sean Smith, and former Navy SEALs Ty Woods and Glenn Doherty were murdered in Benghazi, Libya. Mrs. Clinton is now scheduled to testify in October before the Republican-led Benghazi Select Committee. After 17 months and millions of dollars, the families left behind are frustrated. Michael Ingmeyer is Sean Smith's uncle, and his mother, Pat, want answers from Mrs. Clinton and the committee.
Do your job. Get it done. Get to the truth. Stop playing games. We're going on a third-year anniversary, and it feels like a decade.
I need to know why my son was killed in Benghazi. I want to know what's in that server.
Mrs. Clinton's email and the mishandling of classified information are under new scrutiny, especially those emails in the spring of 2011, as arms poured into the chaotic Middle East and the State Department sought to arm the Libyan opposition.
Well, this would come under Secretary Clinton's watch.
American arms dealer Mark Turi is at the center of a federal investigation involving Libya, Syria, and Turkey. Turi is president of the Turi Defense Group, a company that for decades has been licensed and regulated by the State Department to sell and move tons of weapons around the world. He spoke exclusively to Fox News.
If a certain country is brokering various types of equipment, we try to get involved. Primarily weapons and ammunition, transportation, logistics, government liaison.
Turi says he is haunted by what he thinks happened when there was a failure to oversee who got the weapons pouring into Syria, Libya, and elsewhere in the Middle East during the Arab Spring. Officially, those who receive or use weapons following U.S. policy are referred to as end users. In 2011, Turi pursued Libya as a business opportunity as dictator Muammar Gaddafi's regime was falling apart.
If you had a properly allocated supply chain where you had everything under control, you would have had our personnel receiving that equipment on the ground in Libya and then taking it back to a warehouse under our control and then giving it to vetted sources. If they would have followed that procedure, maybe Ambassador Stevens and Sean Smith and Ty Woods or Glenn Doherty would be alive today.
Turi shared emails from 2011. The traffic indicates that high-level Democratic, Republican intelligence and military contacts, both inside and outside of government, encouraged him to explore options for arming the Libyan opposition.
Yes, I kept getting information from my associates that are liaising with members of Congress and saying, there's still interest. Keep going.
We asked Fox News senior judicial analyst Judge Andrew Napolitano to review some of the email traffic between Turi and members of Congress.
Well, unless Mr. Turi concocted these emails, which would be nearly impossible, he has presented sound, documentary, irrefutable evidence to show that this was a covert operation, a grand conspiracy, if you will. One thinks and one wonders when one sees the constellation of political superstars who signed off on this. And you get back to the emails, that members of Congress absolutely knew about it.
Turi's initial application to sell weapons directly to the Libyan opposition, known as the TNC, was denied.
It made perfect and very clear sense because the TNC was not a recognized entity in the world, which means they could never have signed an end-user statement. So the only person or organization or entity I could deal with was the U.S. government.
This sworn affidavit released in May 2015 and obtained by Fox News indicates a covert weapons operation was authorized. Turi's partner and advisor was this man, David Manners. During his 18-year career at the CIA, he served as the top spy in Jordan and in the former Czechoslovakia. Manners stated in his expert opinion, the United States did participate directly or indirectly in the supply of weapons to the Libyan Transitional National Council.
That's where I came up with this zero footprint Arab supply chain, whereby our foreign ally supplies another Arab country.
Turi says it was a workaround because at the time the U.S. had not officially recognized the rebels under the TNC.
My idea was to set up a warehouse where the only person that could take that equipment out, or the only entity that could take that equipment out of Qatar or UAE, was the U.S. government.
As part of the workaround, the U.S. would supply conventional weapons to another U.S. ally, Qatar.
There's a 60 millimeter mortar with optics, 120 millimeter mortar, all conventional type weapons. If you want to limit the exposure to the U.S. government, what you simply do is outsource it to your allies. The partners, the Qataris and the Emiratis, did exactly what they were contracted to do.
During Hillary Clinton's term as Secretary of State, U.S. arms dealers were awarded a record number of export licenses to sell sophisticated weapons, military parts, and technology internationally. Selena Realu is a professor of national security at the Perry Center at the National Defense University.
That's actually been a huge policy position of the Obama administration, was to actually overall to improve U.S. exports overseas.
In 2011, more than 86,000 licenses with a value of $44.3 billion were granted, a surge of more than $10 billion from the previous year.
If you would like to engage in arms sales and you're a U.S. manufacturer, you actually seek license and apply for an export license with the State Department. Andrew Shapiro served as the Assistant Secretary for the Bureau of Political Military Affairs under Secretary Clinton. That role is actually responsible for overseeing this entire export control process at the State Department.
March 2011 was a busy time for Hillary Clinton and her team, which included Andrew Shapiro and senior advisor Huma Abedin. On the 14th, along with Chris Stevens, then serving as the embassy's deputy chief of mission in Libya, Clinton met with Mustafa Jibril, a senior member of the TNC. The next day, Clinton met with Egypt's transitional leader, Nabil El Arabi, in Cairo, and walked through Tahrir Square with Abedin. At the same time, government documents showed that Turi's proposal, a $267 million contract, was working its way through official channels.
My application was submitted on the 12th. These brokers then, through their relationship with the TNC, then provided that application information to Ms. Clinton via the TNC counsel when she was in Cairo. That's what was told to me, and an email.
Turi also showed Fox emails from April 6th and 7th, 2011, that he exchanged with Chris Stevens' personal email account, alerting him to his application to sell weapons. Stevens replied with a thank you, and I'll keep it in mind and share it with my colleagues in Washington.
He is the point guy now.
Coming up, what does this email from Secretary Clinton tell us about her secret strategy to arm the Libyan rebels? In early April 2011, arms dealer Mark Turi is exchanging emails with Chris Stevens. A day later, on April 8th, this heavily redacted email shows Secretary Clinton was interested in arming the Libyan rebels using contractors. FYI, the idea of using private security experts to arm the opposition should be considered, she wrote. And Mark Turi showed Fox emails from his business partner David Manners from March and April 2011, which indicate support from Admiral James Stavridis,
The Supreme Allied Commander for the European forces.
In this email exchange, Admiral Stavridis, from a government account, writes he can fully vouch for David Manners' credibility. And Stavridis copies General Carter Ham, then commander of AFRICOM, short for Africa Command. Also copied via a personal email address was Mike Kostyou, who until February 2011 was a staffer for the Senate Armed Services Committee under Republican John McCain.
Mr. Turi paints a picture of a government totally out of control, operating outside the confines of the Constitution and without any transparency.
May 5th, Turi received this preliminary approval letter from the State Department for his $267 million arms proposal for Qatar. In July, his Arizona home was raided by federal agents.
They came in with full body armor and weapons, and they take my computers and my cell phones, and they've been chasing me all over the world for the past 3 years, speaking to associates of mine all over the United States and looking into my records and my past.
Now Turi is facing trial set for this December on 2 counts that he allegedly violated the Arms Export Control Act by making false statements. His attorney Jean-Jacques Cabot told Fox in emails that his client had a track record working for the U.S. government through the Central Intelligence Agency, and the government's case is an epic fishing expedition.
She has never communicated with me at all, even after promising. That, to me, is a slap in the face that she has given me over and over again.
As Hillary campaigns for president, several of the main players in Benghazi have left public service and now work together at a Clinton-aligned D.C. consulting firm, Beacon Global Strategies. These include Hillary's principal gatekeeper, Philippe Reines, Andrew Shapiro, who oversaw weapons contracts at State, former CIA Deputy Director Mike Morrell, who edited the talking points, and Admiral James Stavridis. Arms dealing can be murky. In his youth, Turi made some mistakes, and Fox confirmed he served time in an Arizona jail. Nonetheless, since the 1990s, Turi's company met the strict State Department criteria to sell and move weapons around the world in support of U.S. operations. Turi insists he never shipped any weapons to Qatar, and others stole the zero footprint idea.
Why isn't the State Department contacting me about making a mistake on my application? The State Department had a lead on this. They were going to run it with their people. And who that is, I have no idea. I sat back and watched this unravel, and it went south really quick. When this equipment landed in Libya, half went one way and the half went the other way. The half that went the other way is the half that ended up in Syria.
This Defense Intelligence Agency report provides further confirmation weapons were flowing unchecked in the weeks leading up to the 2012 attack. This is what then Secretary Clinton told Senator Rand Paul in her only testimony to date.
Now, my question is the U.S. involved with any procuring of weapons, transfer of weapons, buying, selling, anyhow transferring weapons to Turkey out of Libya?
To Turkey? I will have to take that question for the record. Nobody's ever raised that with me.
It's been in news reports that ships have been leaving from Libya and that they may have weapons. And what I'd like to know is the annex that was close by, were they involved with procuring, buying, selling, obtaining weapons? And were any of these weapons being transferred to other countries, any countries, Turkey included?
Well, Senator, you'll have to direct that question to the agency that ran the annex. And I will see what information is available. And
you're saying you don't know?
I do not know. I don't have any information on that.
2 weeks after that testimony, this State Department letter was sent to Senator Paul. It skirted his question, stating the U.S. government is not involved in any transfer of weapons from Libya to Turkey. Fox News is reaching out to current and former government officials whose names appear in the emails. You can read more about our ongoing reporting of the Benghazi terrorist attack at Fox News and foxbusiness.com.